Yeah. Hey, attendees, I'm going to open up your mics. We've got about another 7 minutes or so before we got to let these folks go and wrap up our conversation. So I'm going to start allowing folks to talk, and feel free to jump in with any questions that you might have, any thoughts that might be interesting. Continue to also share comments in the Q&A and the chat feature. So if you all have any thoughts, comments, most of you are, uh-oh, I'll fix that. Okay.
So I heard there's a comment here from Michelle Hilbert on Facebook, students talking about Black Lives Matter demand to have more Black and ethnic studies. Have the students said they'd never had a Black or brown teacher. Couldn't even name Black and brown teachers at our school. Dr. Latish Reed shared this with me once at Milwaukee Public Schools, that there's about, the student population's about 80% students of color. The teachers are about 80% white. And then the administrators are actually about 80% people of color. So there's kind of this weird, I mean, the word that's used here, the operative one, is weird.
I would argue that those numbers one more time, Adam.
80% students of color, 80% white teachers, 80% administrators of color at MPS. And that, I mean, that's basically like institutional racism. That's another name you could give to it. But yeah, that plays a huge role in it. I've heard her quick reasoning was that when the schools desegregated, there was redundancy and teachers of color got laid off. So, I mean, that's a simplification, I'm sure, in a lot of ways. But
David, I just promoted you to a panelist. Yeah. Man, jump on in.
I was trying to get David to respond to stuff, I think. I was like, let's get into David's home court and see what he has to say.
Well, I was going to say, I just commented that there's a push for educators of color to go into those admin roles. And I was recently having a conversation with someone about how much of that is rooted in whiteness and white supremacy culture. And I know that may sound crazy to people that are listening to me, but the reason why that point was made is what the person I was talking to was that people of color in leadership positions, especially with young people, tend to get treated as the whisperers, right? So when you have a white teacher that doesn't know how to connect to their students, you call upon this leader of color who's going to come in and basically like, you know, instill discipline or get students to engage. And I think, you know, in that conversation, we came to this realization that like we need to really cultivate teachers of color staying as teachers before they even move on to these leadership positions.
Thanks. And I'm promoting folks to panelists. So if anything weird happens, I apologize. I just want to make sure everybody has the full opportunity to share thoughts. So feel free to unmute. We got a few more minutes. If you have any comments, jump on in, folks. This is
I think you know, when we talk about the development of teachers in our own communities, we have some really heavy lifting to do. I think we need to reintroduce that concept, and I think, you know, there's so many pushes to, you know, take students into STEM, into other areas. And really, you know, we lost a little bit of that energy to reintroduce students to the field of education under a different lens, and you know, with equip them with other information. I think we ought to, you know, push for programs that would allow for students to be introduced to that field, to the School of Education and all respective institutions, and really model and let them know of the need for them in the system, right? And I think, you know, a lot of it too has to do with their own individual experiences. If they did not see someone that looked like them in the classroom throughout their K through 12 experience, why would I go into a field?
Yeah.
Right. So it's gonna, like I said, it's gonna take a lot of heavy lifting and, you know, strategy, which I'm more than willing to join anyone that's on this call and beyond to think about ways that we can bring that message to students and begin to develop little by little the culture that it's needed for students to consider the education field.
You know what? Actually, let me try this. Eric, you might be sitting, you can weigh in on this, but you might be sitting next to someone who has something to say on this. I know your wife, your partner, is a teacher at South Division who grew up in the same neighborhood where she teaches now. Kika, do you want to say something? You want to
Kika is with me right now, and I don't know, I can't see the shot or whatever.
Hey, Kika.
But she is with me here, getting ready for the corona test. She hasn't been involved in the conversation because I have my headphones in, so to use the microphone, so she didn't get a chance to hear the conversation. But I will say that Kika is an individual who has been involved in this kind of work since she was very young, and that work is how I ended up in Milwaukee. And she is a truly inspirational person in her work in education as an MPS teacher for ESL. And Kika, do you want to say something about the importance of having Black and brown educators as teachers for the students and the impact that it can make on the lives of the students? Big question.
Sorry, Kika.
Well, I'll speak about my experience.
I absolutely love what's happening right now. This is great.
I guess I'm here.
Great for us.
Welcome,
sorry, Kika.
Welcome. Talk to us.
So I, not to like put my school out there either, but I work at a high school with mostly a Black and brown student population. And I am an ESL teacher, and I take that role very importantly, not just as like, oh, students should learn English, but like using language as a tool for your own advancement, and not just because we're in America, speak English. And I am the only ESL teacher of color at my school of the 5 ESL teachers that we have. And I feel like my students find it difficult to connect with other ESL teachers many times because of that. Not to say that they aren't doing good work in many ways and that they aren't working to be culturally competent, but just the lived experience. Like even when my students ask me, oh, where do you live? And I'm like, oh, I live on Pierce, like off the National. And they're like, oh, for real? Like you don't live on the east side or wherever? And I'm like, no. Or where did you go to school? I went to MPS. And so just having that rooted connection.
I think we lost that.
Well, I think, we lost, but I think we got the point though. So thank you, both of you, for sharing, and thank you for jumping on just out of the blue. All right, we're going to wrap up, folks. We are going to continue.
Being able to make sure.
Oh, she's back. Yes. Start over like the last 20 seconds or so.
Oh, I'm sorry. Because of those experiences, I feel like having teachers of color that are representative of the student body is important for relationship building and building connections with our students.
Oh, we gotta stay on for this. Are we getting ready to watch a corona test? Leave us on the corona test, please. Folks, this is history for real right here. Okay.
Sorry, Kika.
Is it possible for me to see the screen so I know what my shot looks like?
Yeah, it looks good.
Dr. Smith, before we disconnect here, I want to make a point that there's a program on campus, Latino Studies program and Latino Study 101, that takes a deep dive into the history of Latinos, both in Milwaukee and also the history of the center and the takeover. So,
hey, Alberto, can you drop that in the chat for us?
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So over the course of the month, folks, we're going to be doing every Wednesday, as you know, we're going to be talking about Latino history in Milwaukee. Next week, we're going to center the voices of Latinx women. And so we're going to have some pretty awesome women joining us next Wednesday. Give our panelists a round of applause virtually, whatever that looks like and sounds like.